Today's project, we're making a batch of pendants using ultra-thin sheets of glass. The glass we're going to be using are these really thin sheets of what we call dichroic glass. Dichroic glass is essentially a type of glass that has metal coatings on it. This particular sheet has about 12 layers coated on top of it, which gives it a really cool color changing effect. And as you can see, the first thing we're doing is cutting it into a bunch of small squares and rectangles. After all the cutting is done, we now have to select the colors that we want to use, and we have to clean each sheet, making sure it's free of any dust and oil. After all the cleaning, it's time for us to start gluing the glass together. We're going to apply a little bit of glue called Hextol onto each sheet. Once it's all glued together, we're then going to wrap it up in some tape and let it cure for about a week. Once it's completely cured, we're going to take it over to what we call the flat lap, and we're going to grind off all the tape. We do this instead of just peeling it with our fingers because one, it's a lot faster, and two, the glue actually kind of absorbs itself into the tape, making it pretty much turn as hard as the glue. After all the tape gets removed, we're left with a bunch of blanks that have these really cool color changing effects to them. Now we're going to take each blank and we're going to draw a quick little template onto the top and sides of the glass. Now we can take this glass and bring it back to the flat lap and start grinding it into the different shapes that we want. Now that we have all the glass roughly ground to the different shapes that we're looking for, we have to take each piece and start removing all the scratches on the surface of the glass. We do this by using these different resin pads here that slowly shrink the scratches until you almost can't even see them. But in order to get the really cool optical effects, we have to polish the glass. So we're going to take it to the polishing wheel and we're going to go through each piece, making sure we get the faces and the edges of the glass. At this point, all the glass work is done, so now we have to build the frame. But before we do that, let me introduce you to the Artsy Coffee Company. This is the world's first coffee company that allows you to make art on the packaging, and every month we give away a custom handmade art piece. This month we're giving away a blue glass puzzle piece with a rainbow fade of dichroic glass. To enter, all you have to do is go to artsycoffeecompany.com and buy yourself a bag of Artsy coffee. It's now time to build the frame for all these pendants. The first thing we're going to do is take this fine silver bezel wire and bend it around the edge of each pendant. After it's been bent, we're going to give it a trim, and now we have this little square. We're then going to solder the seam together so that way it's one solid piece. After that, we're then going to solder on a fine silver wire onto the very back of the frame. This wire is going to prevent the glass from falling out the back when we put it into the frame. Now that we have this square, we need to get rid of the corners, so we're going to take this little coping saw and we're going to cut out each corner. Doing this will make it much easier later on for us to bend the metal over the glass when we want to put it into the frame. After the cutting and filing, we're going to sand down the back so it's nice and flat. And just when you thought all the soldering was done, we actually have to attach what is called a bail onto the frame. This is one of the most important pieces because it's what the chain feeds through and turns this frame into a pendant. As you can probably see, the metal is pretty dirty and dull looking, so we're going to take it over to this polishing wheel. We're going to polish the edges and the backs of the frame, giving it a nice shiny look. We have reached the home stretch. All we have left to do is to take this little brass pusher here and push down the metal onto the glass, securing it in place. Now it's time for us to check out the results. The first piece is one of my favorites because it's fractured, meaning that some of the glass has been cracked, giving it that cool optical effect. The second pendant is much simpler, but because of all the layers of glass, you still get some really interesting effects. This rectangular piece was a bit of an experiment because I added some extra facets on the edge, creating a sort of X-like shape to it. But my favorite shape-wise is this one here because it has a really cool cross pattern on it. I definitely want to make more in the future. Of course, be sure to let me know in the comments which pendant is your favorite, and if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to subscribe, and thanks for your time.